welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Ben Jackson and I'm back to be the host, which feels like the first time in about a month. Feels like a very long time since I was with you guys. The guys I'm speaking to, obviously, are Scott and Joris. How are you guys doing this evening?
Hey guys, how are you both? It's great to be back. The full trident back in action. Ben was saying, that's it's been a month, hasn't it?
I think so. A few weeks with Scott, and then I think the week before I was also just with Ben. That was something like that. So yeah, definitely, it's been something going on here. But finally, the band is back together, and I'm happy about that, of course. So let's dive in. I'm also want to say that I'm gonna congratulate a friend of mine who yesterday won the Humo's Comedy Cup in Belgium. So that's a fun fact. I think he listens sometimes. Anyway, I will find out this way. So that's why. So congratulations, Bert, a friend from the radio where he worked before.
Yeah, congratulations to him for that one. Sounds like a great award to win. Before we get into all the action, a bit of admin, I guess, as they say. We've decided to launch a Buy Me a Coffee kind of donation site, I guess it's called. For those of you familiar, you'll know it's kind of a way of kind of contributing to what we do as a podcast, just through kind of buying us a coffee. So instead of buying yourself a coffee, why don't you give us some money of your hard-earned coffee money, I guess. Basically, we're kind of, this isn't for us to make money out of it ourselves. It's just kind of to help with running of the podcast. Lots of podcasts kind of recording applications and that are starting to need to be paid for, and we've bounced around a couple of free ones, but we quite like the one we're with, so we're hoping that maybe if people contribute a little bit of money, it will go in towards the running of the podcast. So yeah, if you see us see the link for that and you feel like donating towards that, be greatly appreciated, no matter how little or how big. The link for that will be in the show notes, and it's also on our social media as well.
Yeah, there's no obligations, but feel free. that's basically the message.
We should say as well, shouldn't we, guys? We should say thanks to those who've already bought us coffee.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a couple of you that have already done that, and we really, really do appreciate it. It's nice to know people are listening. It's nice to know people enjoy what we do. So yeah, if you're here for the first time, obviously no obligations, but if you've been here for a while, maybe, I don't know, now I'm starting to sound like a church service when they're trying to get money out of you for the time. It's not quite the same, but if you want to give 10% of your yearly income, we won't say no. Anyway, let's go into this week's action from the Belgian Football League, from the Belgian Pro League. Oh, it feels like it's been ages since I've been able to watch any Belgian football, so it's been good to be back. We kicked off on Friday night with St. Truden against Antwerp. That one finished 1 goal apiece. Cercle Bruges continued their fine season with a 2-0 win over Eupen. Charleroi had a dramatic 3-2 win over kind of struggling Westerlo. Standard Liège beat Genk 1-0. Ghent drew 1-1 with Union. Club Brugge somehow only managed to just win 1-0 against OS Leuven. Anderlecht left it late to beat Molenbeek in the Brussels derby. And then KV Mechelen, they beat Kortrijk 3-0. Let's start with St. Truden then at the Daya Wasabi Stein. St. Truden obviously against Antwerp. Couple of rumours circulating. A man with his ear to the ground, Sasha Tavolieri, has been reported that Jane Stoikers is being linked with a move to Columbus Crew, which seems like a little bit of a random one in the sense of going to the MLS, but I guess Dante Vanze has done it. A couple of other players have done it as well. It was that man Stoikers who gave St. Truden the lead. Lovely flowing mood finds him, and he absolutely smashed it into the back of the net. He's kind of been the more creative player this season, and Koita's been scoring the goals, but this time the roles were reversed. Koita getting the assist, Stoikers getting the goal. And tried to get back into the game. At half-time, Chidele Ejuke, the Nigerian winger, came on for Abner Muya. It was Ejuke who got his first goal for Antwerp in the league in the 81st minute. Nice finish from him to make it 1-1. That's how this one finished. Scott, I guess for Antwerp, for St. Truden, so it's a bit more kind of frustration because they keep throwing games away late. But then I guess at the start of the game, if you'd said you'll draw 1-1 with Antwerp, they'd probably have taken it. So kind of half and half. Whereas I know that Mark van Bommel and Antwerp were pretty unimpressed with having to play on the pitch. I think they had some not very nice words to say about the pitch and kind of blamed that a little bit. But at the end of the day, 1-1 draw between the two sides.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, it's probably quite a decent point for St Truden. They're actually undefeated in 5 now, but if you look at those 5, they arguably could have won 3 of them. So it's and if you've been listening to us regularly, you'll know that we've been highlighting what the kind of issues they are with the Canaries kind of quite a lot, and they haven't changed yet, although the window is kind of fast approaching now. So they'll be getting on their starters blocks, getting ready to pick up the phone and try and bring in what looks like they're going to need 2 strikers now, as we were talking a few weeks ago. With Koita getting his international call-up as well. A draw was a fair result here. I have to say, Stoiker's goal I thought was actually fantastic, and we saw 3 or 4 really top-drawer goals this weekend, I thought. Really great finishes, really good assists as well from Koita, as you were saying, Ben, and St Truden just kind of not able to hold on in this game yet again. But yeah, Mark van Bommel, as you were saying, he had some quite strong words to say after the game, basically saying that really they weren't good enough. They didn't deserve certainly the 3 points. So they'll take the point in the end. Looking at both teams' schedules coming up as well, St Truden have got a little run of games where they will fancy being able to take some points now. They've got Mechelen away, Leuven at home, and Molenbeek away. So they'll be hoping to take more points from them than they've been able to take recently. But generally, they're sitting all right still. Antwerp, on the other hand, have got Leuven at home, Cercle away, which is starting to look like a pretty big game at the moment, considering Cercle are above them and going fairly strongly at the moment, before they then play Anderlecht at home in another big game. Antwerp's form recently has actually been, on the whole, decent. They've started to kind of turn up again after, a long period where they were kind of, went through a goal drought, as me and Joris were talking about recently as well. But yeah, fantastic goal, and both sides really, I think, will be reasonably happy with the point in the end.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning though that this form of Antwerp, it's mainly concerning their home form. Away form, they've got 7 points out of 8 games now. As a reigning champion, that are deceiving stats, I think, regardless of this specific game. I do not think they really deserved more either. They actually scored from their 1 shot on target, if I'm not mistaken, even. So yeah, that's that does tell you something. And both goals I found actually quite similar. Sturkers one even more brilliant. I think the very nice run and rocket to score it, but Ejuk's one, there was more people around still and a bit more composed, maybe. To a more refined finish, maybe even in that way. But 2 really nice goals in this game. And for Sint-Truiden, you guys already mentioned it as well, throwing away the lead again. They did the same against Gent, against Genk, and now against Antwerp. And there might be more, but these are 3 that come to mind. Against top sides, they seem to struggle to really get it over the line. But okay, I don't think anyone before the season started would have thought they actually would be in the position they are at the moment. And what do we make of the comments about the pitch? I think we probably should touch on that a bit more, nonetheless. Is there? Just in general, that's a general topic. It's not specifically for this game. I think there's actually many sides that have complained about it at Sint-Truiden as well. And there is an argument to make that one, should there be an artificial pitch? Should that be allowed? And secondly, should there be, if there it is, should it be still under some quality restrictions or something? Because the one that is lying at Steyr is actually not really of the best quality, and you can see that especially around this time of year as well, of course, if when many teams already have played on it.
Well, Vincent Janssen had some quite strong words, not for the first time on the pitch, because of course last season he didn't play there for that reason, because he doesn't like it, and they were worried about his knees. So he was the first player I looked for to see whether he was on the team sheet, and of course he played this weekend. But we know in the Eredivisie as well, the sides have got together and been discussing this for a while, and they've sat down and decided to effectively subsidise the removal of the remaining synthetic pitches. And there are some other leagues around Europe as well where with this issue, they finally decided to, much like with the Eredivisie, some of the bigger sides and other leagues have decided to basically meet the costs of the removal of synthetic pitches. So I think we're probably moving towards a point where the pressure will increase on St Truden. Having said that, to be fair to them, which I want to be here, the synthetic pitch there is marginally better than a lot of the ones you will come across. Emphasis on marginally.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't think they should like get rid of it and replace it with another one. And I guess you can kind of say they do have the advantage of being able to play their home games there, so they're used to it. But I'm also like, come on, guys, you're professional footballers. You should be able to play on an artificial pitch. You should be able to play on any pitch. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like when you're growing up and playing as a youngster, you play on some horrendous pitches. Like, it just is what it is. This is still better than 99% of the pitches, and you're going to be playing on it. So I don't like it as an excuse. Like, I'm fine, like, because yes, there are injury risks and yes, there's stuff like that, but it's just that like both teams have injury risks on that pitch. Like, it's the same. St Truden, yes, they have an advantage playing on it at home, but I'm also kind of like, just you should be able to play on anything at the end of the day, like within reason. During the international break, I think in Rwanda they were playing on one and it was just waterlogged, and I was like, this is just the dumbest thing ever. Like, why have you got a synthetic pitch that also can be completely and utterly waterlogged? It was like the stupidest pitch I've ever seen. But yeah, I'd rather they got rid of it, just then they don't have to worry about this conversation anymore and all that sort of stuff. But I'm also kind of like, I just feel like it's an easy thing to kind of rag on about for opposition teams. Like, St Truden it's not like St Truden win all their home games either, is it? Like, they still do lose games at home, and teams can still play on it. So
yeah, that is the argument to make, though. Like, okay, in this case not, but I think Riemer also had it when Anderlecht won there after the game. He also commented it on it. Like, yeah, it's still like that's more the time to do it, I would say. And also, additionally, we seem to have there's the issue with the parking spot, in that they have to really rebuild part of the whole stadium. Even they can't just play change the pitch. So yeah, there's some additional logistical issues there. But anyway, yeah, wanted to talk a bit about it anyway. I'm sitting a bit on the fence as well. I kind of agree with Ben here anyway. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, well, I doubt they're going to do anything about it, depending on what we've said either, or what other teams say. I get the league, if it needs to go, the league has to make that decision and tell them what to do, because.
Well, they could always they could always open a buy me a coffee account to fund the removal of the pitch.
Buy me a wasabi, more like with them, isn't it? Like,
buy me a wasabi coffee. Yeah. That will be a thing somewhere.
Oh, 100%. One side, let's talk about stadiums and pitches and all that stuff. The Ambridal, like, who knows what's going to happen there. But Cercle Bruges were there, and they hosted Eupen on Saturday afternoon. And this one should have been a cricket score to Cercle. It was actually ridiculous how many chances they had, even in the first half. They finished this game with 29 shots, 10 of which were on target, and an XG of 3.02. And they only had 44% of the ball. It's just mental, absolutely mental how they didn't score more goals. They didn't score at all in the first half. In fact, Eupen probably should have scored when they kind of their one attack, I guess, of the half. Nuhu breaks free from an offside trap, racing down on Varlason. Varlason I think he's already diving to his right, and Nuhu just kind of like puts it there anyway. Like, if he'd just taken like a millisecond more to look at the goalkeeper, he'd see that he's already going that way. He could have stuck at the other side. He didn't do that, and it stayed 0-0 at the half. Cercle Bruges then took the lead in the second half through Alan Minder. Really, really nice finish on the left-hand side. He'd had a great chance in the first half that he'd absolutely missed. Denki had missed a couple in the first half. But yeah, Minder made it 1-0. And again, Circle kept having chances. Erpen again trying to hit them on the break with Nu, who he didn't find Finn Bogerson. The ball kind of bounced its way to Finn Bogerson, but his shot was pretty tame, and Vardason made another semi-decent save. Erpen really did push into the final 95th minute, sent everyone forward, ball gets clears, Olagbe running onto it, and he kind of like pushes it through, and it's a foot race between him and Slanina. And Slanina's so slow compared to Olagbe. Like, Slanina has a very nice head start, but Olagbe just races past him. No one stops him going through to score. There was in the Bundesliga a couple of years ago, there's a very similar situation where I think it's De Boer's going through for Hoffenheim, and I think it might be Riedler Baku just absolutely sives him down before he even gets a chance to shoot. And I was just waiting for an Erfen player to do that. It's like, just, you kind of want to just take one for the team there, but no one did. He scores, made it 2-0, which is more. I thought, Circle Boosters have way more than that.
I actually wanted to give kudos for Slonina for not doing that, because he was thinking about it, but in the end he didn't. But because why would you take one for the team? The game was lost already, and you only get another red card for consequences for later games. So and I think he actually took down accidentally then an open player on the way as well or something. It was a bit of a funny one as well. Anyway,
it's like chaos, absolute chaos. It was a hilarious goal. And then, I just don't know how they didn't win by more goals. It was just ridiculous. Like, Erpen was so poor in terms of creating any sort of chances. I think they only had 6 shots, but 29 shots for Circle. Scott, we know what they're like. They'll go in and analyse the game, and while they have kind of those like markers for the season about what they want to be doing and where they want to be sitting, and I think they'll probably be happy that they won. But I can imagine Milan probably just sat in that office, just kind of looking at that, being like, how the hell did we not score more goals? Like, the inefficiency was ridiculous.
Well, I probably should tell everybody, while we were in the middle of watching this game, I did actually say to you guys, didn't I, in the chat, they're going to have to score soon here because they were so on top and creating so many chances. I was starting to get that horrible kind of feeling in your pit where you think, right, you're so dominant here. All Eupen need is one chance. They're probably going to go up the park and score. And they almost did hit Circle with a sucker punch late on in the first half. They had a break. And of course, it was Isaac Nu who, as Joris was saying, why doesn't he just try and round the keeper sometimes? But yeah, I mean, they got there in the end. I mean, it was within just a few minutes of the start of the second half that, you know what I mean, the doors started to open, and this was total domination, really, this game from Circle. And I think they could smell blood this week. I saw Big Miron's press conference leading up to this game, where he said the objective was really to go out there to play their own game and to, hem Eupen in. Because they're struggling at the moment, and just overawe them a little bit, which is what they did by playing their own game. Olegbe's winner, ultimately in the end, the second goal, as Ben was saying, absolutely hilarious. I mean, I think that was one of my moments of this weekend. I mean, assisting your own goal is not something you will see very, very often. But yeah, this is goalkeeper comes up, last minute, you have a corner, you're trying to grab a point. The ball breaks, obviously, against you, and before you know where you are, you've lost the game. I have to say, actually, though, Circle are coping really quite well with their injuries at the moment. I think a lot of people assumed that because they've lost, Abu Francis, Christian Ravic, Van der Bruggen and Leonardo Lopez for a bit, that maybe they might be a bit vulnerable. And their consistency might drop, but actually the players that have come in, I think, have done really well, and arguably they've even got a little bit better. They've really stepped up. De Wilde, Nazinho, Le Martial have all been pretty decent, and I can't say I've particularly missed the players who are out at the moment, and that's the really big plus for Big Miron here, who, by the way, and we got this news today, Big Miron appears to have agreed a contract extension for another year to take him up to 2025. So although the club haven't confirmed this yet, there's a lot of noise coming out at the moment that the deal has been agreed. So maybe by the time you listen to this will have been confirmed. But that's That's the big news story over the last few days, which is really important because we know how important that he is to their longer project. So the fact that he's decided to stay and to commit for that little bit longer and turn down interest from reportedly Italy and Germany can only be seen as a very, very encouraging thing for them, because they are, well, in fourth at the moment and doing very well. Eupen, on the other hand, I think, what is that, 2 wins in 11 now with 8 defeats, something like that. 10 goals scored, 24 conceded in that time. You know, it's not looking good at the moment, because they've also got the joint worst defence along with Kortrijk, and, you know, nothing that big Florian Kofeld seems to be tweaking at the moment seems to be having that much of a difference.
This might sound very ridiculous now after you two guys spoke, but I did see Eupen winning this game after 15 minutes or something like that, because the start, even maybe half an hour, because the start, it was really end-to-end even. Yes, Eupen didn't create enough chances, but in the beginning they had some more breakouts where they should have done more, but they failed to do so. But but they didn't, and well, Scott already used my words there, obviously. So I don't know why Nuhu doesn't try to round the keeper sometimes, given his poor finishing skills. And being their main man, he's actually playing well, I think, generally. But that part of the game is just not his. So that's a bit of an issue. And well, we've touched on that before. Another thing that's a bit of an issue is also partially because of how Cercle coped with it, I think. But they got 8 offside calls in this game. So I think it was deliberate from both sides a bit. So like Eupen trying to get some players in behind Cercle's defense. But usually Cercle did manage that well, and they put a player in also there. I think Nuhu was often the player involved, the running in offside position. Like, could have done a bit of better, smarter runs. Maybe there would have been a bit more in this game. Ultimately, of course, a very deserved win for Cercle, who also indeed, like you guys touched on, missed a lot of chances. They needed in the end a set piece as well. It was only their 4th set piece goal this campaign, and maybe their 1st or even 2nd only from a corner kick, or was it from a free kick? Whatever it was, I've lost it here, but because it was actually from the rebound of it as well. Even was a really neat finish though from Minda. Definitely, and up to 4th again. Definitely very sweet hit from Minda, and for Eupen, well, indeed, joint worst defense now, which is actually an improvement, because they were the worst defense on their own before this weekend. but well, I'm not sure if you can read much into that. But they are back into the relegation playoffs as it stands at a halftime point now. So let's see if they can crawl out of it again.
Yeah, I think you just kind of summed up their season, Joris, there, didn't you? Saying you could see them winning it in the first 30 minutes and then it just kind of all falls apart. The classic starting well and then completely dropping off. One side that hasn't started well and hasn't come back at all are Westerlo, and they travel to a struggling Charleroi at the weekend. And they go off to a good start. 24 minutes in, Nicholas Madsen's shot is deflected, loops over Coffee into the back net to make it 1-0. Pretty unhappy Zebra fans at half time. So Mazu starts chucking some players on. On comes Ode de Bag. On comes Dan Heermans as well. Bernier off, Parfait Guéon off as well for those two. And it's Dan Heermans who makes the difference. Adam Zorgan with the ball over to him. He takes the touch and fires it into the back of the net. Unfortunately, he had to also come off in the 65th minute, which is a real shame for him. So at that point, it's 1-1. The other substitute then announces himself in the game. Ode de Bag just completely outstrengths, I can't remember who it was for, Haidara, it was for Westerlo, goes around him and puts it past Bollat, who's standing in a weird position. I don't know if you watch the goal, it just seems like he's standing in a really odd place for it. He's just kind of showing to bag basically where he could put it, and Devag's like, okay, I'm going to stick it there then. Cheers for that, Sinan. VAR had to intervene. From the highlights I saw, I have no idea what the issue was. I don't know if they thought maybe it was a foul on Haidara or something like that. I couldn't see if there was an offside or anything.
Yeah, I believe it was that, an offside in the potential offside in the build-up, if I'm not mistaken. But okay, in the end it's Stoots, right? So.
Yeah, it still counted. If it was a foul on Haidara, it'd have been incredibly, incredibly soft. In my opinion, he's just stronger than him in that situation. And then where am I? Yeah, so that's 2-1 to Charleroi with about 20 minutes to go. Looks like they're going to hold on until the man of the moment, Griffin Yao, of course. Who else? He comes on to score another goal for him this season. Thomas van der Kavers with the pass through. He fires it in to the bottom corner to make it 2-2 in the 91st minute. Looks like Leicester have rescued a point, but then deeper into these added time, 96th minute, Yusuf Silla, who's come off the bench, the former Zulte Waregem youngster, he finally gets a goal for the side, heads in. Really, really nice header from him. Jonas Bayer with the kind of flick on, he heads it past Bollack into the net. Great to see him scoring. I think he was one of those players I mentioned, like, I think it was last year. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to see him play. I think he played like 5 minutes for Zulte Waregem. So it's nice to see him getting some game time. And then, Scott, you said your favourite moment of the weekend was the Alagbe goal. My favourite moment of the weekend comes at the end of this game. Westerlo have a free kick, great position, Bollat's up, everyone's up, Griffin Yau's over the ball, and you're like, he's just got so many options. He can shoot, but why don't you just dink it over the top and cause some chaos in the box? He goes to shoot, and he just hits it into Rosed. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a worse free kick at that moment in the game, ever. It was so bad. Like, the opposite of clutch. It's honestly, like, if you haven't seen it, go and find it, because it is one of the worst things you'll ever see at the end of a game. And you can just see the rest of the team just kind of look at him like, I can't believe you've done that. At literally the last kick of the game, you just pumped the ball into Rosed. Like, if it came out that it was like match fixing or something, you'd be like, yeah, I can believe it. Like, that's how bad it was. So forward Griffin Yao, because his actual goal was really, really well taken, but the free kick was honestly horrendous. Finishes 3-2. Paper this week, Jonas de Rock, he's going to stay because they saw some mitigating circumstances apparently during that game. They felt lots of things went against them. And I'm kind of, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm sure we've spoke about it before, but I don't hate not getting rid of him. I think he did a decent job last year, and the squad, maybe there still is a chance. And Josh, I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago that for him, he's always said that it's not about kind of, doesn't matter where, if you finish in the bottom four, you finish in the bottom four. It doesn't actually matter where you finish in the bottom four, because you're still going to have the chance to play yourself out. It's about just reaching that outside of the bottom four. But that gap is starting to grow, and this game definitely made it a lot bigger at 5 points. But an entertaining one, and we saw a Mazu running down the touchline. So I think this game almost had everything.
Yeah, well, you mentioned my favourite weekend moment of the weekend, and this game had my second favourite moment of the weekend. Ben's already given you a bit hint about it, and that was Felice Mazu doing a Mourinho, running down the touchline with that winning goal and piling onto his own players in the corner, while then issuing further and tactical instructions with probably about 20 seconds left in the game on his way back to the technical area. Yeah, great moment. I always love it when people let off steam like this. You know, that's what it's all about. And these are the sorts of moments that kind of VAR's robbed us of, actually. So I'm just glad that there wasn't a VAR intervention at that point, which made that joy redundant. So yeah, second great moment of the weekend. This game was really all about the stoppage time, wasn't it? You know, we had 2 stoppage time goals. Wasn't a bad game. Adam Zorgan, by the way, was brilliant this weekend. Really, really good. Creating lots. In fact, the only thing he really didn't do was score himself this weekend. He had a really good game. One of our long-term favourites, one of our Joris's long-term favourites, and he's still with us. He's still here. He's still in Belgium, everybody. Ben was talking about the Charleroi fans having making their feelings known at halftime. They were particularly poor in the first half. I said this to you guys when we were watching it, didn't I? I said Charleroi have been shocking here in this first half. I think Felice probably had some very stern words. He made some little tweaks in the second half, and they came out all guns blazing and actually turned the game around kind of quite quickly, and were much the better side in the second half. But I think Westerlo have reasons, as Ben was saying, there are some reasons to be optimistic there. They have little spells in games where they play quite nice football. They're just playing with a lack of confidence, understandably, at the moment, and they need a few results to go their way. But yeah, I'm with Ben on this. I think they should stick with Duroc at the moment, because I think the risks of the change are too. Yeah, there's too many risks associated with a change for them, I think, unlike with some other clubs. So I think they're right to stick with them for the moment. And they've got some huge games coming up ahead of Christmas. I think they play Leuven and they play Kortrijk as well before Christmas, I think. So, a couple of wins there, and, the entire complexion of their season can kind of change again from the perspective of where they are at the moment. So I think they're right to stick. Conversely, if those games go against them before Christmas, then they're probably going to be the first side to make a change in the new year. So it all depends on what happens over the next month or so, doesn't it?
Well, it's always about the next games, I suppose. But yeah, I'm with you guys as well. I think the Rook, I do think they actually can get out of it. The last few months actually have been a bit of an improvement. Weeks, maybe not months, but has been some improvements. Also in this game, indeed, Charleroi were poor in the first half. The whistles actually were going against Sorgan specifically as well, despite what Scott said after what happened afterwards. But yeah, he did reply on with his feet with 2 assists, and also the set piece taker for that final goal, even though that was not an assist from him in the end. But because that was also more of a ricochet, well, not a ricochet, but a rebound, heading a back, like Ben mentioned, Bager giving the assist, the headed assist as well. But there's an interesting stat for the betting fans for us for in this specific game, and actually Ben mentioned something about match fixing here, but I don't think it has something to do with it. But last season, both the home and away fixtures for both sides. Well, so the 2 fixtures between those 2 sides ended at 3-2. In both fixtures, one side scored late on in Westerlo Charleroi. It was in the 89th minute. I haven't written down, or I don't remember which one scored first. And then in the 90th, the other team scored to get the win. And in Charleroi Westerlo, it was in the 88th and 89th minutes. Also, both teams scoring for. So yeah, definitely interesting. But a safe bet would be the 3-2, and then maybe some goals in the final minutes, I suppose. But yeah, that's very strange coincidence actually. That yeah, definitely. I think you guys mentioned a lot of things there. Heymans getting his first goal as well. He was relieved for sure. I think Westerlo were in control without trying to do that much, but they had the organization in playing, were controlling the game, and that just changed somehow. Not straight in the second half, but after some time, and yeah, okay, that gave Charleroi the momentum to ultimately get it over the line. Yeah, also Yao I seem to have scored the equalizer as in the dying minutes, as he did in Molenbeek a few weeks or months back. I think it's only weeks ago. Yeah, but ultimately, yeah, he was denied that of course, partially because of his own doing, like Ben mentioned, but that was already after the other after Charleroi already had scored the in the end winning goal. Definitely important win for them, for Charleroi, and yeah, that's they are on a good track now. Let's see if they can hold it on a bit longer than they did last time. They were on a good track.
Yeah, no, they'll definitely need to, because they do need to start putting some distance between them and that bottom 4. Because yeah, I know I've said about Leicester. I think I kind of agree with you. I feel like out of all the teams in the bottom 4, I feel like they do have enough to get out of it. But equally, I can see that bottom 4 staying as the bottom 4 for the rest of the season, to be honest. I think you're looking for the other three teams, probably Eupen, Leuven and Kortrijk, that they'll need some sort of movement in the January window to kind of push them away from that. Whereas Charleroi, they should be able to start moving away from this, but they've just been so inconsistent. They'll be desperate to change that. Let's go to Liège for another side that's been reasonably inconsistent, which is Standard. They hosted Genk, another ridiculously good atmosphere for this one, very, very feisty. Standard has some decent chances to start with. Isaac Price just narrowly missing in the opening few minutes. Ngoy did maybe my second favourite moment of the game of the weekend, when he did some ridiculously good skill for a centre-back. It was one of those great ones where he did all these lovely skills, like beat a couple of players, and the shot was just so bad and just like dribbled wide. But the rest of the approach play was good. We appreciate the approach play. Very Musa Gineppo, all about the approach play, but actually the final bit not really there. 0-0 at half time in this one. Into the second half, Standard did finally take the lead through Kawabe. Really, really nice finish from him at the back post. It was kind of they'd shaped to almost do this one earlier in the game. There'd been a cross to the back post that I think it was Price had just got in before Kawabe was going to hit it, and it then been cleared off the line by one of the Genk defenders. This time there was no Price to get in the way, and Kawabe just volleyed it into the back of the net. Really nice finish from him, and that was the deciding goal. Kind of, if you look at the football momentum, it just Standard in the first half had a lot of momentum going, but in the second half really did ebb and flow. Genk pushed, but they just couldn't get back into this one, so they drop a few points in this one. Whereas, for Standard Liège, they kind of closed the gap on that top six. They're now within 4 points there. As always with Genk games, we'll go to Joris first. Joris, your reflections on this narrow defeat to Standard.
Well, just a very poor performance. Nothing much more to say again. I think basically goes for both sides, I think, as well. I think the highlight of the game was actually right before the start of the game, already the light show at Standard and in combination with the pyro. Of course, even as a rival fan, I'm definitely, I can enjoy that. That was very impressive. But the game itself was a bit deceiving, I think, from both sides, but especially from Genk, to be fair. There's the one call you didn't mention yet that was maybe not in the highlights, but the one chance that Genk had in the first half, basically, where Zakiri put it away, but he was ruled offside. And, well, to be honest, on third side, I thought it was offside, but the problem here is that we just don't know the right angle. Like that, if we saw it only from the angle that in the end was shown with the VAR line, that's really from the camera at the halfway point of at the line, instead of in the 16 or the 18-yard box. So around the 80-yard box. So it's a really tough call, and it was very narrow. It was way more narrow than I initially thought already. Yeah, and of course that in such a game that could make a difference. Of course, it was a game of fine margins. But well, okay. I still feel like that's not should not have been a decisive factor in this game. A very deceiving performance, especially from Genk against a quite depleted Standard side even. So I was very disappointed watching this game. And in the end, Genk had a few chances. Rozovsky should have put one away that was more or less a penalty kick. Unfortunately, he only hit, I think it might have been Ngoy as well, or one of the central defenders anyway. And Tolu also had a good header chance that he missed, that in the end was not that close, but that felt like he could have or maybe should have done better from close range. But disappointing. And still stop and go. Not stop start season for Genk. I'm very don't know. I still don't know. Even at halfway point, I don't think there's I've been saying that repeatedly now. I think already. I don't think there's any title race in this Genk. But where they will stand. Will they be able to even get into this playoffs at the moment at the halfway point? They narrowly are still in there, but I think that's more at the grace of some other teams also underperforming. So it will be an interesting race there, I think. On Standard, a really great goal, of course. There was indeed a big chance where Heineke headed the ball away from the line as well. And yeah, I guess not a great performance, but a decent enough performance to, in the end, ultimately deserve this win. Even though a draw may have been a fair result as well, but there was not that much in it. And yeah, just the first win in 4 games as well now again. And even though I believe I saw earlier today a stat where if you put the classification from after the transfer window closed, Standard are actually in 3rd or 4th position. You would not think that even, but even with the few wins, they had a bit of an upturning form straight after that. But lately, it has been a bit more of a slump. But I'm still surprised. That might also show both that they are picking up some points. That's and that they might not need as much as it feels like still to really go. Have a more meaningful role on the top of the classification instead of just kicking the big boys' asses, but then dropping points against the weaker teams on paper. But it also might also show that there's a lot of inconsistent teams going around and not really a runaway side in the league so far, even though one is still very much trying. And I think the top 3 probably are running away slightly, but even that might change quickly if we, as for example, it both ways. King's next fixture is against Gent. If they win that one, they're actually on their toes, on their heels already, which you also would not really suspect given the season that both teams are having. But so that not that much to say. Very disappointed in the performance of the side of the team, and hopefully there's some upturning form very very quickly, because some very important games coming up also in Europe.
Yeah, I think Joris is right. I don't think there was very much in this apart from that fabulous finish from the Slesen Samurai, Heiao Kawabe, who's now got, I think, 5 and 15 and 2 assists. So, all round, he's looking like one of their best signings of the summer. He's actually contributing reasonably regularly for them, I think, and probably is one of the first names in the team sheet for them. Karl Lufkens afterwards was pleased.
He's also their top scorer, so I would assume so as well, indeed.
Absolutely, yeah. Karl Lufkens was really, really pleased afterwards. He was saying that he'll take that all day long, as he should, because I think one of their priorities was getting that 6-0 thumping before the international break out of their system. So I think Standard would have taken a win, no matter how ugly it was, just to kind of clear the memories of that. So from their point of view, it's been a good week, even if the performance arguably certainly wasn't much better than it's been for a long time either. But it's about consistency for them now. We've been saying this for ages. Carl said it this week as well, that if they can go and beat big teams, which happened under Ronnie Dyla as well last season, incidentally, but then drop points against sides that they shouldn't, then they're not going to make progress. So it's things like that he has to find a solution to as well. And just circling back to the light show for a second, it was a great spectacle actually. And having been at kind of similar light shows in other big stadiums, it's one of those things where I think you have to be there to kind of appreciate it. There was a lot of nice video footage doing the rounds over the last few days of it that looked slightly underwhelming if you weren't there. But I suspect if you were there in person, it would have been much more interesting and impressive, because it's one of those things that you have to sample in person, definitely. But it's a nice thing to have. And of course, Anderlecht have now got, as we know a few weeks ago, when they were celebrating with Paul van Himst's birthday, that these light shows can really pack an extra punch and be just an added reason to come out of an evening, as if a cracking game of football wasn't enough to get you to come out.
Yeah, and we touched on your guys' favorite moment of the weekend. Now you guys also know mine, and also I guess we also should mention the occasion here. So also congratulations, Standard, on their 125th birthday of the club. It probably has something to do with a specific date. I didn't look that up, but I suppose so that it was actually in November, or otherwise, well, already the whole year. This might have been the closure of the year almost, and a good occasion for them to celebrate this.
Yeah, especially when you consider how many Belgian clubs have never made it past that many years anyway, with all the kind of teams that have folded and remerged and emerged and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, definitely congratulations to them on that. Joris mentioned the top three. Two of those sides clashed in Ghent, which was obviously Ghent against Union Saint-Gilloise. Yeah, not much between these two sides either. Ghent had a couple of chances early on. Tisdale with a nice turn. He thought he'd found the back of the net, but he was ruled offside. Just before half-time, Ghent were awarded a penalty. Julien Dessart stepped up to make it 1-0. Not long into the second half, however, Union were back in the game. Cameron Puertas with some really nice feet and a lovely finish to catch Davy Ruth out at his near post. And that was pretty much it. This one finished 1 goal apiece. There were a couple of chances for either side. Kevin Rodriguez almost created a decent chance, but David Ruth had to make a couple of decent saves. On the penalty for Ghent, it was quite a comical one, I thought. Samoa's going through, and he just falls over, just completely loses his footing. And as he's going down, he's like, "You're coming with me, mate," and just drags Samoa's down as well. And he doesn't really say anything. Laffy-San just kind of helps him off, and they just kind of get on with it. You could tell they all kind of knew that it was definitely a penalty. There wasn't much they could do about it. For Puertas, yeah, I think that's now 4 goals for him to go with those 11 assists. 4 goals in all competitions, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5. So yeah, he's just continued to have this ridiculously good season. Bit of frustration from Gift Orban only coming on with 6 minutes to go. He absolutely gave it to a water bottle on the side of the pitch as well. Hein, obviously being Hein, and the post-match said, like, do you think we'd have created as many chances if we'd had him pressing? I don't think we would have. It's like, oh, it's just, I don't know, there's some tension there. And you're just looking at the situation, aren't you, and thinking they could have sold him in the summer, and then they asked for 30 million euros, and you think, well, they're not going to get anywhere near that much. With the way things have been going this season. So it's kind of like selling while the stock's high, but they didn't. He's still there. I've seen as well a couple of fans have been complaining about him not playing because I know someone wrote, football is also about entertainment, by the way, to Hein. They're like, Hein just loves his hard-working forwards. He doesn't like entertaining football. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like Tisdale is a pretty entertaining forward. But I kind of get it, the way with his kind of... I think you see it mainly when you look at... again, you see it with the kind of the wide men. They're not the most technical. They're not the most exciting. They're not the most creative wide men in football. That's very, very high. And so you're kind of wanting a little bit more from those front guys. But I don't know. I feel like that is a storyline that's been rumbling on. And this was the first real incident I thought we saw of Gift Orban really being pissed off, like the way he booted that bottle. And then Hein's not going to not say anything, is he, in the post-match? Like, he will have to say something because that's just who he is. He's just not very diplomatic, is he? Let's be honest. And that's what makes him entertaining, and that's what makes him quite a fun person to have in the league, in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, 1-1 draw is the main one from this one. For Union, they are now on 35 points. They basically will keep that 7-point gap to Ghent, whereas Ghent, they're kind of getting closed in on, like Joris said, Genk could close within a point of them. Cercle Brugge just within 3 points with them, and Antwerp are within 4 as well. So they're kind of in between, like Joris said, pushing away with those top 3 or getting dragged back to kind of battling out to get into the top 6.
Yeah, as Ben was saying, this was a hard-fought draw actually between two sides who are going to hope certainly to be challenging each other for the title. We know Ghent have got a massive January coming up, could be losing up to 7 players. That could kill the entire season for them. I'm desperate to know what their plans are to kind of cope with that. What's the strategy, guys? Because you've known about this for months and months, so it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle that and if they can maintain the kind of pressure on the top come the end of January, early February, that they are up till now. Ghent were pretty good in the first half. They had a good first half. Big Ian was saying he was disappointed that they didn't go in at half-time with more than one goal. He said he felt they deserved more than that out of the game. Union, not great in the first half, clearly had a word with themselves because they were the better side in the second half, and night and day stuff. Big Hein just can't seem to get the better of Union, really, can he? You know what I mean? Union are a bit of a bogey team for him in lots of ways. And I just sense you can see it in him. You know, he knows Union are the best side in Belgium at the moment, really, not just because of the top, but I think on, general consistency they are. And I sense he's kind of desperate to get the better of them. He said a few things this week, not in relation to Union, but Ben was talking about his comments in relation to Orban in particular. Who, lots of people have been wanting to stoke that a little bit, but we've been known about this rumbling in the background for weeks now that Big Ian's not particularly happy with his contribution in aspects of training. Gift's come out and been very honest, actually, and said to the press, look, I'm one of those players I'm no use coming on in a game. I need to know I'm starting. That's when I'm at my best, and you'll see the best of me on the pitch. But he did have some controversial comments this week, Ein, as well, about scouting. He was talking about how scouting is apparently overrated in its emphasis among different aspects of the media. And we know this is controversial because obviously Ghent's head of scouting, Sami Cardenas, left the club when his contract expired recently, and there was some kind of controversial comments over the last few weeks where those two have not seen eye to eye. So I found it interesting that he decided to give us a little insight into the complex recruitment situation that has been going on inside Ghent for years now, let's be honest, and this kind of played right into the narrative of that, which I thought was a little bit spicy. I kind of enjoyed that. We got some interesting comments this week. I shared some of Hein's comments on the Coin Consultancy Twitter account, and we had some interesting comments from a couple of people, one of whom's David Smolders, who's head of recruitment at Zulte Waregem, and he was quite honest in kind of saying, well, I think, although he's broadly right, Hein, he's also wrong in that, I think to run your recruitment the way that they are, and that's putting less emphasis on the scouts generally, because that is what's happening, although they still have some operating, is an interesting way of running your club. But to be fair to Ghent, clubs have their own personalities, a bit like human beings, and they all do things differently, don't they? But yeah, Union will take a point, getting back to the game. They'll take a point all day long, and it keeps their unbeaten run going. However, what it does mean for them is that obviously Anderlecht, in terms of the bigger picture, they're the big winners really this weekend because they've narrowed the gap slightly.
And Union haven't won. That's also a streak broken. That was 8 wins in a row. That didn't become 9. Doesn't need to be significant. Anyway, I do feel Ghent actually failed to benefit from some mistakes and from the... Actually, no. They put a lot of good pressure on Union, which Union were struggling to cope with, especially Machida, who, even aside from the penalty, had a bit of a torrid game, especially the first half, I think. It was really struggling to play out, and Ghent actually were able to get hold of the ball quite high on the pitch, but then they didn't create enough out of that. So I feel like they probably should have done better, and it seems to be a recurring issue with Ghent this season. Now, I've already jinxed the next game already as well, but they haven't won many of the top games. They also haven't lost, though, but they also already had... Many of them were at home, and they only won against the teams... Well, both teams from Bruges, I believe. And as we consider for this season, then a top team as well. Given their position, that's definitely a fair thing to do. That's so. They really need to get some wins there to make me convinced that they can actually win the title, because of course in the playoffs it's only going to be against those sides, and you'll have to win some of those games, especially at home, so that they have some points to prove. And probably next week we'll be sitting here and they will have have some good results away from home in a game you would consider a top game still at this point in time of the season as well. So yeah, definitely something that's something to work on. Although on the other hand, not losing them, like they had a lot of draws in that also shows something, and at least no other team is running away from them because of that too much. But yeah, definitely a few thoughts there. There was also a controversial phase in the beginning of the game where Amura got his yellow card, I believe, where I've heard voices that it should have been a red card. Additionally, okay, that's another topic, but then at the end of the game, the Gent players also were really trying to point out that he already had a yellow card and he should have gotten a second yellow at some point. What was there in it, something in it that should have been a red card, what Amura did in the beginning where he got his yellow card?
I think the Ghent fans were certainly looking for a red card because he was getting a lot of stick, Amura. I think the referee, to be fair to him, actually did a good job of kind of calming things down. I think it was an interpretation thing. I don't think there was a straight red the Ghent fans were kind of looking for. And there was a particular moment in this game where the referee was having a word with Amura. He pulled him over and just told him, you can see quite clearly, he was saying, look, just kind of calm down. And I think it was more to do kind of with petulance as well. There was a point where he kicked the advertising board in frustration, which ordinarily would see you get a yellow, which he didn't for, and that led to the referee saying, look, just cool it a little bit. So it's back to the age-old refereeing conundrum of inconsistency, I suppose. I didn't think there was anything in it more than a yellow, so it was kind of handled quite well in the end. This game, of course, actually saw yet another one of the fantastic finishes this weekend. Cameron Puertas's goal, I thought, was top drawer finishing. That that was really, really good stuff. And probably one of the goals of the weekend. We saw, I think, three crackers. I think Stoiker's was a beauty. Puertas's finish was top drawer. And we're about to talk about a game in a second, which had another fantastic goal in it as well.
Yeah, you did the segue for me there. Thanks for that one, Scott. Let's go to that game, which was Leuven against Club Brugge at the King Power in Leuven. Maybe a little bit of a similar story for Club, not as massively to the extent as for Circle in this one, in the fact that they had plenty of chances, just didn't take them. It took them till the 2 minutes into added time at the end of the first half to open the scoring. Buchanan plays a nice ball over the top towards Eucler. He cuts inside and just, curls it into the top corner. Really, really nice finish from him to make it 1-0. I then tuned in to watch the second half of this one. And to start with, Club they were creating chances. They just weren't really taking anything. Forced a really decent save out of Toby Layson in the Leuven goal, where I think it was, who was it running through? Someone was running through. I think it might have been Eucler. It looked like he tried to dink it across to Thiago Rodriguez to finish, but Layson just sticks out a massive hand and tips it, not just kind of away, but out of danger as well. It was a really, really decent save from him. Although when I saw him, I just don't know. He just looks like he's been AI generated. He just looks really weirdly kind of formed man. I don't know. He just kind of, because he's got no hair and he just has a very basic face. I don't know. He just looked like he was created by an AI. They were we need to if you played any of the old FIFA games, if you played pro clubs online with your friends, they'd give you all these randomly AI generated players that just had the same name as famous players. You'd get a Podolski or you get a Hullet, but they were just random white guys that were just chucked on the game. The AI just generated them. That's what Layson looks like to me. He just looks like he's been AI generated.
Are you being Harris here?
Yeah, maybe it is that.
Both
Maybe it's the
move.
lack of hair. Maybe if he had like flowing locks, I'd take it back. But I don't know. He just seemed very kind of like very generic looking. But he made a very good save. And too far, I thought he had there's nothing he could do about the goal from Eucla. So there wasn't anything that you watched thinking they look massively worse at the back, because they're terrible at the back anyway. So maybe give them some like a decent run in the side now, because they love changing goalkeepers. They haven't done it for a couple of matches now. Maybe give the youngster a proper go. So yeah, club didn't take their chances, and Leuven then, yeah, they just started to. You could kind of see at the back for club, they started to kind of get a bit jittery. Thorsteinsson, bless him, like I can't remember who the referee was in this game, but I've generally thought he was going to hit him at one point. He just had enough of being just blown up for everything that he tried. Just seemed to get blown up by the referee. Like any little push or like tackle, or he'd win the ball back and it'd get blown up. He'd think he had a corner, it'd get blown the other way. Or it's just like you just look at somebody like you've had enough. You've just had enough. He arguably should have scored when Buchanan did one of the I don't know what he was doing. There was a ball over the top and he tries to like knee it, to like bring it down with his knee. Absolutely bizarre. Ball goes through to Thorsteinsson. He shoots and misses, or I think it's deflected out for a corner. And Bout Bruns is then moaning at him for not passing it, even though he wasn't even in the shot. It was all very like weird, because earlier in the game, when Bout Bruns had come on, he'd taken a shot and Thorsteinsson had to go at him for not passing it to him when he'd not been in the shot either. So a little bit of tension between those two, who I think are two kind of quite frustrated players. I think Thorsteinsson's frustrated because he arguably is their best player, and a lot of what needs to go well at Leuven is reliant on him. Bruns is has kind of been relegated to the bench now, and he's watching Opoku start ahead of him for the last couple of games. So I think he's a bit frustrated at not getting the game time. But I guess you've got to earn that off the pitch. And I think you always find this, don't you guys, with a new manager comes in, like you start to see who his players are, like who's impressed him in kind of training. And clearly Opoku's impressed him. Like, I feel like that's just an obvious one at the moment. Whether that means he's the right player to go on the pitch and do stuff at the moment, I don't know. But yeah, interesting one. Like club, for me at the end of this one, club really should have won by a lot more. But then for Leuven, they did have some chances to get back into it, and they looked a little bit better, but they just didn't ever really, really look like scoring at any point.
Yeah, Leuven are just another one of a number of sides that are kind of playing, low on confidence for obvious reasons, really. A few, I think, energetically speaking, there has been a tiny improvement since Oscar Garcia came in. It often takes a little bit of time for these things to kind of filter down. You don't always get an immediate response, but I detect, and regular listeners will know I talk about body language a lot. I detect a few wee kind of positive signs that, they feel better together as a unit, obviously, and have been working on a number of things. Very difficult coming into a game like this, I think, really, as well. Club, deservedly won this, much the better side, bringing some of their quality for a change, although not really exciting at all. Yeah, I would say that much. The goal that won it in the end was a moment of rare quality. But yeah, again, I mean, I look at the lineup that Ronny Deila put out there, and the attacking firepower there at your disposal that just is not flowing in any way at all at the moment. It is still a concern. I mean, you've got, Eucla, who I said weeks ago that I thought he should be starting ahead of Thiago up front. He now is, but now Ronnie's playing them both to try and keep them both happy as much as anything else. Thiago had a pretty bad miss in this game as well, by the way, that, had me with my heart in my mouth. But yeah, the firepower again, Van Aken, Zinkernakel, I'm just looking at the lineup here, Nielsen, Vettelsen. This is a side that we've been saying for weeks should be doing a lot better than it is. Ronny Deila has, as he said this week, he says they have a plan. He says he wants to get to Christmas and get a few weeks wins under their belt. And then he hinted at, the new year being, them being able to kind of turn some kind of new leaf. I don't know kind of what he meant by that, whether that was just a distraction from a lot of the recent criticism or not. But yeah, they got the win, and actually it's a really important win for club because their first win in the league in 4, and it keeps them within relative touching distance of where they want to be. And they were getting to a point where, me and Joris were discussing this recently, that they didn't really have any more wiggle room. So it was really important that they did get this win, and they got it. So from that point of view, they'll be satisfied. And yeah, from Leuven's perspective, not too much to report other than some signs of small improvement, I think, but that has not converted into points yet.
Yeah, well, they had a really bad November in the league. Lost 4 games in a row now, and only scored twice. So that sums up their issues a bit. Indeed, Leijsen getting his debut for the club. I think he had a good game. Ben touched on that already as well. Yeah, definitely. For them, that's the only thing to mention. I guess they could have grabbed something here, but that was, well, if they would have finally converted something, and ultimately, of course, Club Brugge deserved this win clearly. Second clean sheet in a row, to talk a little bit positive for them as well. Also third, even if you count Europe with that in it as well. But nonetheless, performance-wise, I would still say, yeah, not great enough, clearly, and closing in on the top 6. So definitely what they need at the moment. Also, the very important thing they did here is their first away win in the league since they won at Eupen on the 13th of August. So that's a long spell that they have broken here. And yeah, okay, we'll have to see how it goes. It was an interesting choice because Jude Gla was actually not even starting up front, but was starting on the right wing rather. So that was the interesting choice that Dela made. And now, of course, he scored that screamer. So who knows? Maybe he will start doing that more often. Maybe that's, well, it's still a bit weird since they actually have that many talents on the wings. But I guess, yeah, they have some slight injury worries at the moment, so maybe a little bit of experiment there. I do not know what to make out of that for longer term, or if there's anything to make out of that in the longer run. But yeah, definitely interesting to see how that will develop. Yeah, and on that Thiago is a bit that Scott mentioned. So it was bad, but also still not sure because it was not very clear what Buchanan was going to do. So I also have half a mind of like he actually did great to actually still touch it. Albeit if he would not have, I think the Kuiper or someone else behind him would have had an easy tap in. But okay, that's an extra factor that you maybe you can, for a striker, you can discount that he didn't see that or feel that. But nonetheless, yeah, okay. Luckily for him, like that was a minute before Jutglas struck that wonderful goal. Yeah, I guess for both sides, not that many conclusions to take out of this game, but important win for Club Brugge nonetheless.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I did have a couple of thoughts watching this game. One of them, I don't know, like this will maybe piss loads of Club Brugge fans off. I'm not sure. But I feel like I think we've had this conversation before, not on the podcast. I think Joris, me and you had it when we were in Belgium, like. But I'd love to see them. I don't know, Dada just like drop Van Aken and play Vetlesen in the 10, and then bring someone a little bit more dynamic in, because I don't know. Like I was watching him on the weekend, I was like, this man. He's very lucky he didn't get to move to the Premier League, because I thought he'd just have got absolutely mullered, like by the press, because there'd have been a lot of money and he'd have come in and like, unless you build a system that suits him, and he's going to play for West Ham, like David Moyes was not going to build a system for Hans Van Aken. Like, that was never going to happen. Unless you build a system around him, you've got players to be his runners and stuff. Like,
he might head in some of the set pieces at West Ham, but well,
that's the thing. But that's what, you know what I mean. Like, it's just, I don't know. I find it very interesting. I think he's one of the most interesting kind of figures at Club Brugge for me at the moment. It's kind of like, what does this team look like without him? Because he will still pop up with goals for them, and he'll still pop up with assists for them. So like, you can tell why you feel like you need to play him, because he's like he's a big, probably on a lot of money. Let's face it, he is probably one of the highest earners there. He does contribute goals and assists and stuff like that. But I don't know. I just feel like the flow of the game would be very different if they took him out maybe and put someone else in. But the problem is at the moment, I guess your replacement would be you'd have to put less. You'd probably move for less than forward, then you're bringing on your Dika, and your Dika is probably going to be booked within 5 minutes anyway. Or you're bringing Balanta, who's also going to be booked within 5 minutes anyway. So that's the kind of dilemma. And I don't know. Like, I don't feel like Dyler's one of those people who wouldn't do it. But we know that there's been pressure from elsewhere about who he picks and who he doesn't pick. So it's kind of like, I think he's having to deal with the internal politics. So I don't know, I'd be interested to see what Club Brugge fans actually think. Because obviously this is a club legend, but then you've also, like, there's a time Ruud Vormer had it where you had to move on. And Ruud Vormer is quite a dynamic player. I think fitness-wise, he's still fine. He can still move around. Whereas Van Aken, he's just quite slow. And there was a bit in this game where everyone was tracking back and he was just mincing back. Like, he didn't track any runners. He just was just walking back, like, not putting any of the effort in. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Dyler, I can't imagine Dyler likes that. I don't know. I feel like he's one of those people that wants people to work hard. So it's just
admittedly, I do think he actually has the best running stats of the Club Brugge sides across the season.
How?
But it might have to do more with the pace that he does it at, of course, and that is an issue on itself. Now, I don't mean anything bad, not like I'm joking, but like indeed, if he does, then additionally, anyway, he has that. He's not the fastest. Like, there's no issue in saying that. I think everyone knows that, but that does show that he does put in the work. If that statistic is correct, I don't know I didn't look it up specifically, but I think I've read it recently somewhere. But that's a surprising part, maybe. But yeah.
I think rightly or wrongly, he has become, and this has been the situation for a long time now, he's been untouchable. And that's a bad situation for you to get into with anybody. And ultimately, nobody is too big to, be dropped occasionally or rested a bit or whatever. But he seems to be in this this ether of untouchability, which is a problem, I think, for everybody. And club have created a bit of a monster, to be honest, about this, because he has had, as we know, relatively recently, during the whole West Ham scenario, with the move that nearly happened that didn't in the end. There was a new contract after that with a pay increase again, and this is just not, as we said at the time, not a smart way to run a club. So it's just not really a healthy situation. But I think Joris is right. I've seen that stat as well, and he pops up with a good number of goals and assists, so he's still contributing a lot. But that is not a defence for him necessarily starting all the time either, and a brave coach, I think, has to have free rein to do that. And I suppose the question is, is this something at the back of Ronnie's mind? Would he like to tinker with that a little bit and try something different? And has there been some pressure on this particular issue because the player is untouchable? It's one that perhaps non-club fans look at all over Belgium, and those who keep an eye on Belgian football from outside who wonder, well, what's really kind of at the centre of this? Because I think Ben's right. The bottom line is it'd be really quite interesting to see that midfield, at least for a little run of games without him in there, I think, to see how that might influence things, because he's a huge presence in the dressing room and at the club, obviously, and that has a massive impact off the pitch as well as on it as well. So it's a really interesting one, this, and I'd like to see them play with that as well, Ben. I agree with you.
Yeah, or even because I'm looking at Vetlesen and I'm like, he's played 15 league matches, like just talking about league matches, 11 starts, no goals and no assists. Last season for Bodø Glimt, last full season, so the 2022 Elite Series season, 16 goals, 7 assists. Like, those are really good numbers. They're really good numbers for a Bodø Glimt side that play really good, dynamic, quick football. Which I feel like this Club Brugge side could play. Like I feel like they could play that. So I'm really interested to hear from like Club Brugge fans what they think, because I think it's very easy for us to be out here and say that kind of looking in. But when you're kind of a fan of a club, and if, like, let's say Hans is your favourite player, and like there will be loads of Club Brugge fans with Hans as their favourite player. Like, let's be honest, he's been during their massive period of success, he's been one of their key players, especially when the strikers haven't been scoring. Like, that's been one of their problems. They can't find a striker, but they've had Hans van Aken, who's consistently bagged the goals. He's got 3 so far this year in the league and 3 assists. So like he's kind of the same as Jukla, and I think Thiago's got 4, and then Scott Wilson on 5. So they're sharing it around, but he's not going to reach the 20s or the 15s again. You wouldn't think, judging by the way everything's going. So yeah, it's interesting. I kind of looking at a kind of like bigger picture, I guess, a little bit further out. I just feel like Lesson in the CDM kind of more further back position, it didn't really look very pleasant for him at the weekend. I think there's a moment he got fouled by Missau and he just kind of like got up. It was like Shrivers or someone like that, and he was just like, he just looked a bit like, I just want to be doing something different than picking the ball up, and I just want to get forward and drive forward, because I think he just looks like one of those players that could really do that. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I think you're right, Scott. It's like Dyler needs to be given the free rein to do it, but maybe this is his choice. Maybe Van Aken, he'd still pick Van Aken, and that's totally fair. But I'm just interested to see what it would look like without him kind of in there. Would they be able to be kind of a little bit more dynamic? But anyway, let's move on to Anderlecht against a Molenbeek in the Brussels derby. Speaking of kind of like old aging players, Anderlecht have just added a couple more to their squad this season after talking about going for youth revolutions and stuff like that. But it was the old man in Molenbeek who opened the scoring in this one. Javier Mercier finishing off a fine counter-attacking move from Molenbeek. Really, really nice finish from him. Shidde with the assist. He tucked it in past Kasper Schmeichel. I don't know, maybe he's playing like Peter Schmeichel.
Interesting slip, that one.
He's starting to show his age, but not that much yet. I reckon Peter Schmeichel could probably still do a semi-decent job in between the sticks. He's still got the size. So that's what it was at half time in this one. Kasper Dolberg did have to go off though in 34 minutes. Luis Vasquez replacing him. It was quite a funny start to this game. Like Abner just getting booked instantly, just to kind of start the game off nicely. Literally within the first minute, he'd picked up the yellow card for, I think he pushed Leone in the face or something. It was pretty soft. Like, I don't think there was really much in it. It seemed a bit unnecessary, but I can't remember who the referee was. Was it Lardo? It might have been someone else. Just like stormed over and was like straight out. Like I'm letting my marker down on this one. Anderlecht did get back into the game when they won a penalty in the 73rd minute. Makta Gay was adjudged to have committed the foul in the box. Anders Lyer stepped up to make it 1 goal apiece. 82nd minute, Ile Kamara gets a yellow card. 88th minute, Ile Kamara gets another yellow card, and he gets himself sent off to kind of just make it really, really difficult for Molenbeek to keep themselves in this game. They do manage to keep themselves in this game, but in the 91st minute, Jan Vertonghen's ball to the back post is tucked in by Luis Vasquez. That makes it 2-1 to Anderlecht, and that is how the game finishes here. Means, like Scott said, Anderlecht are kind of the big winners from the weekend in terms of the top of the table. They close the gap with Union to 4 points now. For Molenbeek, they are remaining 3 points above that kind of relegation 4 places. I guess we should start calling it something different. Relegation playoff, we'll call it, with the bottom 4. They'll probably be a little bit frustrated to not have come away with a point at least. Deforney did almost save the penalty as well. He got a decent hand to it, but couldn't quite tip it out. But Anderlecht get the Brussels derby win in this one.
Yeah, it looked for a while like, despite the overwhelming power in Anderlecht's favour, that they were going to drop some points here right until the death. So Brian Reimer will be delighted that was not the case in the end, because it was definitely a game that they should have won by a lot more than they did in the end. I was doing something that I would not recommend anybody do, and that was having one eye on part of this game and another eye part on another game going on at the same time, which we'll get to in a second at the Guildenspoor. And yeah, never double screen unless you absolutely have to, which we do far too often here because the three of us are mad. It goes without saying. But yeah, I mean, Anderlecht, and I'm not going to say title challengers yet. This is not a hot take from me, but We've been saying that they've been playing kind of quite well without necessarily dominating games for a while, and are still kind of continuing to do so. What we're starting to see now, I think, is them dominating games a little bit more in a way that they weren't before. This weekend, it didn't quite look that way. So lots to be happy about at the moment from an Anderlecht perspective, and obviously they've narrowed the gap. So really big and important weekend for them in lots of ways. Molenbeek won't be too disheartened by this, I don't think. It was always going to be difficult for them to get anything out of this game. A lot of noise around in the build-up to, of course, with it being another Brussels derby. Did everybody spot the big guests in the house at Lotto Park? Obviously, big weekend for the Hazard family. Eden Hazard was a guest sitting with his brother, Killian, of course, who plays for Molenbeek. Torgan would have been on the pitch, of course, to complicate matters further, but he's injured at the moment. So there was plenty of interest this weekend at Lotto Park for the Hazard family.
Yeah, sadly, indeed that Eden comes to see a game where in the end none of his brothers actually are able to play it. Well, funny, it's sad, of course, but it's it is what it is, I guess. But and also Jean-Claude Van Damme was also expected to be there, but he had some urgent family matters in the end. I believe something has happened that's also not great, but that would have been an extra spice even to the muscles from Brussels at the Brussels derby. But,
very good. He's been rehearsing that all day.
No, I actually only came up with it now, but it came out surprisingly fluently. No, definitely very dominant display indeed from Anderlecht. Although I still have that itch a bit, like if they would not have gotten that penalty, if they actually would have would have won the game, or even would have even drawn the game, because up to that point they were really dominant but not creating much. Afterwards, they end up with an XG of 3.5. So they definitely deserve to score some goals. But there was a really big miss from Raman from really straight after the equalizer from like 5 meters out. So I presume that's a high XG factor. The penalty itself was, of course. And then also there was some scrimmage where then in the end Struikens also had shot it from close range at the body at the line. So that also definitely would have been multiple XG factors, and definitely one really big one for Struikens there. It could have gone differently on a different day, despite Anderlecht's dominance, and of course clearly deserving the win here. Definitely something something to consider. Like also like the penalty. At first I thought it was a light penalty, but ultimately, I do feel like it was a clear penalty, but a little bit unlucky though, because it was really a matter of milliseconds. I think that Gay maybe was late on the ball, which would have maybe changed the decision there. First loss for Molenbeek in 4 games now. So far they're still standing in a good position, but the gap is not big to actually to either side, but mainly I guess in their case to look at the bottom spots. But and of course the red card for Kamara, who came over from the Anderlecht Futures in this game, then that's also a bit of another sad but slightly funny, but not really funny, but another side story that just in general, I guess, to this game that's worth mentioning. That's they were both deserved cards as well, I think, although the second one maybe in another game you might not have given it, but ultimately I think he probably did enough throughout the whole game already to get another yellow card anyways. But definitely. And Molenbeek were really unhappy after the game with the refereeing decisions there as well. They felt it went only one way. Well, I guess in a way that's true, but also is it necessarily undeservedly so? That's another discussion point, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like if if you're committing fouls, if you're doing the ball, if you're committing more fouls than the others, like I can, yeah, the penalty one, I can imagine that would be quite frustrating. But when they look back on it at the end of the season, if they stayed up, they'll just be like, yeah, okay, that probably was a penalty. And everything, yeah, the Kamara one, it's like if he wasn't on a yellow card, the second one would have been his first yellow anyway. I think like it was just, yeah, not the best from him. Let's go. Yeah, Scott, you mentioned the other game that you were trying to watch. So let's go there now, which was Kortrijk against Mechelen. Even sporting the Mechelen shirt tonight to kind of pay homage to them winning a game. They went to the Golden Sport Stadion, Goldensporen, and yeah, came away with a nice win. After this one, Glenda Bock was basically like, he said he couldn't fault his team. We could probably pick out some faults from him if we wanted to. Especially in the defense.
Was he watching the same game as us?
I'll give some more context to what he said later on. But this is what I've read. It was a bit of a kind of return to form, I guess, for Rob Scoofs. Mechelen really needed him to step up, and he did so in this one. He played the ball through for Norm Bassett to get his first goal for the club. Really nice finish, actually, from the teenager on loan from Cannes in France. So that was nice to see him get on the score sheet, and you're just kind of hoping that maybe he can just slowly build into the striker that Mechelen need this season, although he's just still so young and there's still so much potential there. You kind of, hopefully this will be a big confidence boost for him. Scoots with the assist. He then gets himself on the score sheet 16 minutes into the game. Set piece is kind of nodded back across, and he's just the first one that wants the ball. A lot of the goals for Kortrijk, especially this one and the other one, were a lot of kind of players getting drawn towards the ball, like seven-a-side kids football. It was very, very poor defending from them. He just, no one around him for him to tap home. They did have a couple of chances, though, a couple of set pieces that Mechelen were able to clear. One that, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Bruno. Can't quite remember. Yeah, I think it was Massimo Bruno cutting in from the right-hand side, smashing it against the bar. It would have been a fantastic, fantastic goal from him. And kind of what Glenda Book's basically thing was, this is kind of what they're almost relying on at the moment, is these kind of wonder goals, because he says we have 64% of the possession, and is that it feels like we're just playing football to play football, not to win games. Which it sounds stupid, but it actually does make a lot of sense. And I don't know if I'll be able to explain it properly, but I feel like a lot of teams do they move the ball around like they're playing like little five-a-side training things. It's like, oh, this is very nice and pretty, but nothing's happening. You're not going anywhere. You're just keeping the ball for the sake of keeping the ball. The moment you get into the final third, you've got no quality, you've got nothing, and you give it away or something like that. It's like, it looks great in your own half and in the middle, but if you can't do it in the final third, what is the point? And I think that's what he's saying. He's like, we do not have the quality in this final third. And he's like, I don't think I can really fault them. He's like, it's not their fault that they don't have the quality. It's like they just don't have the quality. So interesting. I think he's kind of, I don't know, maybe he's just realised, oh, this is an absolute shithouse. What am I doing here? Why have I turned up here? Because he was very competitive in that opening press conference, and now I think he's realising, there's a reason this is a tough gig, because the owner doesn't care anymore, and you're now dealing with the consequences of an owner that doesn't care and wants to sell. So I do feel bad for Kortrijk fans, and it got even worse for them in the 79th minute. Jonas Malady comes off the bench. He picks the ball up, and about 4 or 5 Kortrijk defenders just try to swarm around him. He pushes one over, and then he plays it across to Rabdi, who's got absolutely no one around him. He tucks it into the back of the net to make it 3-0 to Mechelen. Absolute kind of heaven for them. Besnik Hassi has got off to the perfect start to his time in charge with this win here. Clean sheet as well. I don't think we can kind of underestimate that. Scott, I'm sure that was almost as pleasing as the goals for you in this one, but they score some goals. Scoofs gets on it's kind of, even without some key players like a Nicholas Storm, it felt like a little bit more of a good confidence boosting win for Mechelen. Whereas, for Kortrijk, I feel like you're basically saying now, if they don't do something drastic in January, they're guaranteed bottom 4, and they're going to find it very difficult to get out of it.
Yeah, I think the very short honeymoon, if there was one for Glenn de Bock, is definitely over now. He's now living with the day-to-day realities of the raw materials kind of at his disposal. From Mechelen's point of view, it's funny what a decent little run of form can kind of do. I mean, that's 7 points out of their last 9 now. And me and Joris were talking about this game last week, saying, if Mechelen were to win it, then they would put some decent distance between them and the bottom. And they've kind of done that now. And what that does is it gives them a chance to not relax, but certainly focus on some of the little changes that Besnik has. He's hinted that he wants to start embedding into this side. I thought this game was really poor, to be honest, and it was always going to be. He said going into the game, Besnik Kazi this week, that he felt that because of the situation both clubs were in, it was going to be a particularly physical game, which is not surprising. And he wasn't wrong. A lot of fouls. The whistle was going a lot. There was no flow to this game kind of whatsoever. And it was a painful watch. The only good thing about it, on a selfish personal level for a moment was the score, as I was saying to you guys. But yeah, I mean, 3 points, they'll take it all day long, and they've got a little bit of breathing space for themselves now, I think.
Yeah, definitely 2 wins in a row as well, of course, and 2 clean sheets as well from Mechelen. So the sky is looking a bit clearer already. And well, Ben mentioned January would be important for Kortrijk. I would say by January, it needs to be solved. December is going to be really important because their upcoming fixture list is Eupen away, Molenbeek at home, and Westerlo at home. So yeah, definitely, if they don't do well enough in these, they might be out of it by January even. Of course, depending on other results, singular results. But yeah, they definitely could also turn their fortunes around before January, of course. That's the thing, but to mark the importance of December for them, and of course also, yeah, to the naked numbers. One draw in the last 4 games, but in 3 losses. After that promising win against Club Brugge, that seems so far away again already. And yeah, and also the worst attack in the league. It's just 10 goals in half a season in 15 games. Yeah, that's not much. And of course, the joint worst defense together with Eupen, as we talked about before already as well, with 32 conceded as well. Yeah, the numbers don't lie. Also, the only team do not have reached 10 points yet. That is more of a, well, that one is not so important. It's more important what the distance is to the other teams, and that one is still overseeable, I suppose, if they can get a good run going. And this might be the good moment to do so, given this fixture list.
Yeah, definitely. They have to win those 3 games, like especially the Eupen and Eupen and Westerlo ones. And yeah, you kind of talk about their firepower and stuff. And it's really like kind of. I was watching Comoros against Ghana in World Cup qualification, just seeing Selemani there, and you're just like, if only they still had a Selemani, just someone that can do something and score them some goals. That's just they didn't replace him. Kadri, great player, but like he's not enough to what they need. Like he's almost kind of in the wrong position for what they need. Like, that's the
Yes,
thing.
yes,
They need
he
the
doesn't
top
really
end.
fit the system at the moment. That's a bit of a problem. The book system, yeah.
It's just, yeah, and it's kind of like, well, should they have just sold him and used that money to get these other players in that might fit the system? But
Plus,
I don't know.
is he going to be offered the AFCON or not? Is that a realistic chance? I do not. You're deeper in that.
He could be. I think, yeah, I think Ramadi does like him and he has used him. But then I also think he's quite keen to play players that are always playing. So I think to be fair to, he plays more than Zorgan for Algeria, which is quite an interesting one. And Moura is definitely going to be going. Like they were like buzzing with him when he played the other day. Like Algeria fans were really impressed with him. So I think he probably does make the squad. But the way Kortrijk are playing, like you said, Joris, like if he doesn't sit the system, they may get better without him. It's just you're still missing someone that can pop up with the odd goal. Just hasn't for a while. So,
It's a bit
yeah.
similar to the Van Aken issue at Club Brugge, maybe. Well, potential issue. I mean, the discussion you, especially you guys, had before, I guess. That yeah.
Maybe we should do a swap. I'm sure Courtright would love that. put Van Aken in that team. He'll definitely at least find some ways to score some goals.
Oh
That is
wait,
for sure.
they don't have money. Oops.
I'm sure we can work something out. Yeah, that is a slight issue. If there are any Courtright fans listening, I do feel for them. It's a horrible situation that knowing that you've got an owner that doesn't want to do anything with the club.
Yeah.
It's
Despite the joke I just made, yeah, it's actually really not very great. Also in regards to their competitors, like Westerlo, they have an owner that is involved and actually has some money that he will splash if needed, either come January as well. Again, he already did in the summer, of course, so it doesn't always work out perfectly, but yeah, there's more room for emergency actions there. And not only Westerlo, but also Molenbeek actually the same, I suppose. We can go both ways. We know that the ownership there is also a bit of hit or miss, I guess you can say at best, but nonetheless.
But I think it's what I see in what Tan's doing is kind of massively similar to what's happened with Reading in my club, in that if you run it not very well, at some point, what you think it's worth is definitely not what anyone else thinks it's worth. And Tan's now got to realise that because of what the mess that they did in the summer with the Kaminsky group, like the waste of everyone wasted so much time in the summer, what he was valuing it at, and they were going to pay more than what he valued it anyway, which was all, it should have been like the biggest red flag wave ever. what he valued it at now is going to be way lower, because everyone's going to come in and look and be like, well, this is a mess. They're going down. We can't save it. It's kind of like what Ostend are in as well, in a similar situation of like, there's people interested, but it's kind of like people are a little bit nervous to kind of see. Whereas Beerschot, Sheffield United only wants to sell them. They're top of the second tier. It's kind of like they're doing it in spite of that. So they're now an attractive proposition. So for Tan, it's the interesting in January is do you try and keep them up to then at least sell them for the price you thought you could get? Or do you just say, accept it, I'm not getting what I want for them, I'm not going to bother, I'm just going to sell it for whatever I can get? So yeah, it's just a mess. It's really, really sad. And hopefully, I don't know, I feel like, the results are important in December, but if they can maybe find a buyer in December, that'd be great. But there's two they've tried to. One was fake, and the other one, Burnley weren't really happy with kind of the city politics of everything. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Speaking of Beerschot, let's move to the Challenger. Scott, over to you for a rundown of all the excitement from the CPL.
Well, we've reached match day 13 in the CPL. Some really interesting games this weekend. I was able to take in, a fair bit of a number of them while double screening. Back to that again. Score roundup as always from this weekend. Lommel lost 2-1 at home to Patra Eisden in the regional Limburg derby. Beveren won 3-2 against Dender. Club Next and Ostend played out a dramatic 3-3 draw. Front-Morin lost 1-0 at home to Denza. Zulte Waregem lost 5-2 at home to Anderlecht Futures. Jong Genk drew 1-1 with Sarang, and Beerschot, who Ben just mentioned, won 3-0 at home against RFC Liège. And in the final game of the weekend, Liège were battered 4-1 at home by SL 16, which is a bit of a surprising result. So the bigger picture looks a little bit like this. Beerschot have now gone top on a good run of form at the moment, 5 wins in their last 6. Zulte have slipped to second, courtesy of their comprehensive defeat this weekend from Anderlecht Futures. Jelle Vossen coming out afterwards saying that they really have to get their act together and not give away silly points like this. It doesn't help when your goalkeeper, Louis Boston, drops the ball like he did this weekend in his own 6-yard box. Giving away goals like that is always going to see you lose games. Denza are actually now up to third. They've got 4 wins in their last 6. Their decent run of form continues. And Marc Grosjean's departure hasn't derailed things. Hans Summers, formerly of Young Genk, obviously picking up his first win. Patro are up to fourth. Lommel have actually slipped to fifth based on the combination of results this weekend after their defeat to Patro in that local Limburg derby, which saw a controversial end. No VAR to those who kind of, keep an eye on things, as we know, in the Challenger Pro League. Lommel thought they'd grabbed an equaliser right at the death, only for the goal to be ruled off for offside. All hell kicks off after that. Linesman and referee getting some pretty brutal treatment, which led to the linesman getting rather upset, shall we say. I think players have a responsibility to kind of hold things together. I think and there comes a point where you just have to accept decisions. Unfortunately, so we don't like to see officials getting harassed in that way, to be honest. But another thing worth mentioning is there are only 6 points separating the top 6 sides at the moment. We've been talking about how tight it is for a little while, but it's really wild down there at the moment, and is probably going to go the distance. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the playoffs in the CPL this season. Just as a little aside as well, top scorer is still RFC Liège's Adriano Bertaccini, who now has 9 goals, which keeps him just ahead of big Zino Gano at Zilta.
Yeah, what an end of the game there indeed. Clearly it's Stef Peters heading the ball, of course, to, I think it was Wouters that scored. Of course, if it would not have been an ASM player to have a Patro player to have headed the ball, it would have been offside. But now it was really clearly Peters, and it was clearly a wrong call. Yeah, then the story with the linesman it's weird because the decision making process was a bit weird because the linesman had flagged, but he immediately realized afterwards, okay, sorry, I was wrong. It should count, but nonetheless, the ref, after how many minutes? I think 7 minutes or so of discussions, I did not give the goal, and that stayed with with original wrong decision, which the linesman knew it was a wrong decision. I guess another reason for the upheaval and so on. But and also worth mentioning, Standard Liège 16 says are having a good run of form. They won 3 of the last 4 games after having won only 1 before. So definitely climbing out and giving them a fighting chance, despite still being on a relegation spot. But yeah, it's definitely a fighting spot, like I said now.
Yeah, no, I think you just feel like the rules don't really help the linesman and the referee in that situation, because you feel like clearly from just an outside looking in, that must have been the referee saying, I mean, yes, you've corrected yourself, but because of this, and this in the rule book, I have to go with this, and this. And it's like, there should be a way that common sense says the referee can be like, look, we all know that this is a goal. We're going to give it as a goal. Like, it's kind of one of those things. I haven't looked into it too much. I don't know. It was like that stupid VAR Liverpool Tottenham thing, where everyone, like, the VAR misheard, or the referee and the VAR were just at different levels of communication and stuff. And it's just miscommunication, but they couldn't correct it. And it's like, well, this is stupid. Like, what's the point of... So it's kind of like, there should just be that element of common sense where the referee is able to then, like, if the FA or whatever came and said, why did you do that? You can say, well, look, this, and this, common sense. Like, because I just feel like, as well, like, when I heard about kind of the situation a little bit, I was kind of like, it's just, you have to remember that these guys are all human as well, and players make mistakes, referees and linesmen will make mistakes. It's like they can't be robotic perfect all time, and if he corrected himself as well, it's even more frustrating for all those sides. Just a quick kind of reflection of what you said, Scott. Obviously, Beerschot kind of do have that chance to go even further ahead if they beat SL16, but then you just said Joris, SL16 are actually doing quite well. And I don't know, you just look at that Liège game, and I didn't watch it, but you just look at it and you're like, Liège got like 2 players sent off. It's like, it just feels like there's something happening at that club that's just getting a bit ugly at the moment. There's some really like frustrated fans. There was that kind of allegations of racist abuse towards Obialare coming from his own supporters. It's like there's all this sort of stuff, and it's just, we went there and we kind of enjoyed our time kind of at least, even though the weather was horrific and all that sort of stuff. But like, it was nice to kind of meet the guys behind the scenes there. They were very, very kind and very like welcoming. Like, it's very much a community club. So hopefully whatever's going on can kind of be sorted out, because I can imagine after losing 4-1 to SL16, there were some pretty unhappy fans and some pretty unhappy players as well. But that probably does it for this week's episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. Just as a reminder, we do have the Buy Us a Coffee. The link will be in the show notes. It will also be linked on our socials as well. If you have any questions for next week's episode, please do get in touch with us for that. Hopefully we'll have sparked some of them with some of our takes this evening about certain players. If you think Hans van Aken should be dropped, let me know. If you think I'm being an idiot, also let me know. More than happy to kind of field those ones. As always, guys, it's been a pleasure spending this time with you.
Yeah, it's been really good to be back together again after a few weeks. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, it was great. And also, well, clearly this is a new thing, so I'll correct Ben here. It's Buy Me a Coffee, not Buy Us a Coffee, the name of the platform. But it's definitely all good. And I hope to have to be in a better mood, actually. Although I have despite it, I hope my team will have a few better results behind the belt. Let's put it that way, than this week, because my mood is okay, but my team did not really cause that.
Absolutely, and good luck to all the teams in Europe this week. We'll have a full rundown of all that happens there when we come back next week. But if you enjoyed listening to this episode, please do leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. And like I said, if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out and let us know. We're more than happy to answer them, either in the podcast, or if you just want a straight up answer, we're more than happy to do that as well. Once again, thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.